Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we will look at how to configure Jenkins in a Kubernetes cluster. We want to set up Jenkins such that the Kubernetes cluster's pods will act as slave agents for the Jenkins server or for the Jenkins container. On my Ubuntu server, if I do Minikube status, I have a Minikube cluster running currently. Now my driver is Docker. So if I do Docker PS, you should see the Minikube container running. Okay. And when I do kubectl get nodes, I have a single node Minikube cluster. If I do kubectl cluster info, you should see information on how to access the control plane and all that, the core DNS, etc. The next thing is to run the container for Jenkins. All right, for that, I'll go to Docker Hub. Then I'll search for Jenkins. I'll use the image from the official. Of course, if you look here, you will see Jenkins is deprecated. So you need to use Jenkins/Jenkins.lts, which is latest. Okay, so we will look at how to run this image for Jenkins container. And so here are some use cases of how to run the image. Now I need to mount a volume on the container. So I will need something like this. I'll mount a volume to this location on our container. Okay. Now this is not compulsory, but it's recommended. And then because I need the two processes or the two Docker containers to communicate with each other, I'll make sure that both of them will run on the same network. So if I do Docker network ls, you see that Minikube is running on the Minikube network and it's of type bridge. So I need to set the Jenkins container to be on the same network so that the two of them can share traffic with each other or they can communicate with each other. All right. So I'll copy this. I'll clear the screen. I'll paste this here and then I'll modify it. Of course, I don't want a situation whereby when I exit, the container stops. So I will run it in detached mode. And then I'll give my container a name, Jenkins. If you have Jenkins port 8080, and then we have 50,000 ports for the container. Now for my location, I'll mount it at Jenkins_vol. So every data will be stored in here on my local host. And then var Jenkins home, that is the mount location on Jenkins. And then instead of this Jenkins, because that is deprecated, I'm going to use this format. Okay. So I'm copying this, paste this here. I need to add one more thing, and that is the network. So I'll do -- network, and the network, remember, is called Minikube. Press enter. So if I do Docker PS, I should have two containers, one for Minikube and the other one is for Jenkins running. And both of them are running on the same network, Minikube. Now, I'm sure by now you all know that when you're setting up a Jenkins server, you have to put in initial admin password and stuff like that. How do you get that to set up the Jenkins since we are using containers? For that, I run docker logs -f and our container name is Jenkins. And this is the init password. Copy that. By the way, before I even copy it, I'm currently running the Minikube inside an EC2 instance. So first, I need to go to security group and allow communication from port 8080 for Jenkins. So this is from Jenkins. Save this. Then back to our instance, copy the IP address, paste it here with the port 8080. Okay, now we can copy the initial admin password, paste it here, continue, install suggested plugins. This will take some time, so I'll pause it. Okay, admin, give it a password, confirm, then the full name, the email, I'll give it test@test.com, just a random email, continue. Now you see that this is the IP address that I copied from my host for the Ubuntu, and the port is 8080. Save and finish. start using Jenkins. Okay, next, manage Jenkins. And dismiss this. Because we want to integrate it with Kubernetes, go to plugins and install the Kubernetes plugins. In available, search for Kubernetes. This is it. Click install. Okay. Next, configure cloud. A new cloud. Let's call it Minikube slave. You can see we have a Kubernetes create. All right, now we have to configure the integration between Jenkins and Kubernetes. There are several ways of doing this, okay? But the way I'm gonna do it is to use credentials. You can see clearly there's no credential here, so add a credential. I'm gonna use the kubeconfig file, so I need to use secret file. This will be my Minikube kubeconfig file. Now I need to choose the kubeconfig file. But before I do that, you should note that the kubeconfig file is inside a hidden directory called kube and has a file called config. This is the kubeconfig file. But when we use this file currently as it is, it will give you some errors because this certificate authority, client certificate, as well as the client key, needs the contents of this file, not the file itself. Okay. So what I would do is to open these files, take the contents, convert it to base64 encryption, and then I'll paste it in there. Now I will save the file and get a copy in my local host so that I can select it here when I click choose file. Okay. I'll open a new terminal. I'll cd into my downloads directory. What I'll do is I'll create a new file and I'll call it kubeconfig. That's created. Now I'll copy the contents of this kubeconfig file. Copy this. In the kubeconfig file, paste it in here. And then I'm gonna change the contents of this to base64 encryption. So I'll copy this path. I'll use cat, then the location, and then I'll pipe it with base64 with no word wrapper and no white lines. Okay, press enter, copy this. I'll get rid of this. I'll paste it there, but before that, because it's directly the data, I'll give it dash data, paste it there. Next one, client certificate, copy this, do the same thing and copy this. Now that is for the client certificate. Paste the command there. And the last one is the client key. So I'll cut all of this, paste it, same command, copy it from right here, copy. I need to add data. Same here, I need to add dash data. Okay, if you don't take it, you forget it. Save and exit. So if I cut kubeconfig, my kubeconfig file now looks something like this. So when I go back here and I click choose file, this is my kubeconfig, select it, open, click add, and then select it here. Now click text connection to see if it works. Now you can see the version of Kubernetes is connected Kubernetes version 1.3. On our terminal, and I do kubectl get nodes, you see the version is version 1.3. It's the exact same version as you can see here. So our connection is perfect. Save this. Now go back to our dashboard. What I will do is to create a simple job in Jenkins to see if the Kubernetes cluster node will pick it up. So let's create a job, but before we do that, let's go to manage Jenkins, go to clouds, and this is our cloud agent or the Kubernetes agent. Now let's go to pod templates and add a Kubernetes pod template. Okay, so for the pod templates, I'll call this the Minikube pod. Namespace, the default namespace. Labels, Minikube pod. Now I'm assigning Minikube pod here as label because when you're executing a job, they will ask you for a label. This will instruct Jenkins to use the Kubernetes cloud slave that we just set up. So copy it somewhere. Okay, so only build jobs with label expression matching this node. Okay, yeah, I will leave it as default so that this label will pick up the jobs to run. Environment variables, the Jenkins, let's go URL. The Jenkins server is HTTP 54.83.108.197:8080. You don't have a service account yet. All right, so I leave it as it is. Create. So when I go back to the dashboard and I'm creating a job, test job, freestyle. Okay. Description, let's call it test job. Now you see that it's restricting it to a label. That's the label that we gave earlier. This Minikube pod. Okay. Now you can see that it matches one cloud. Minikube, it's set up as a cloud, so that's why you see that. Okay, now we want a simple job, so go to build step and let's execute a shell command. pwd. All right, I'll leave it as it is, apply and save, and then I'm gonna try to trigger it. All right, so to trigger the job, click build now, and you should see something happening down here. As you are watching the Kubernetes pods, you see something here pending, container creating. So you see that it's running. Okay, so you see build now done. So this is how you would integrate Kubernetes with Jenkins. Like this video, comment and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and I will see you on the next one.